I used to be the king of broken promises to myself. Every Monday morning, I'd wake up with this burning determination to finally get my life together. I'd create these elaborate habit plans that looked perfect on paper, but crashed and burned within days. Sound familiar? Here's the brutal truth. 90% of people fail to build lasting habits, and for years I was part of that statistic. But what I discovered changed everything, and I'm about to share the exact method that transformed my life. Let me tell you about my lowest point. It was January 2019, and I was staring at my phone at 2 a.m., scrolling through social media instead of sleeping. My gym membership had been collecting dust for months. The stack of books I promised to read sat untouched on my nightstand. My healthy meal prep containers had turned into expensive storage for leftover pizza. I felt like a complete failure. Not because I lacked motivation. I had plenty of that. Not because I didn't know what to do. I'd read every self-help book imaginable. I failed because I was using the completely wrong approach to building habits. The problem with how we're taught to build habits is that it goes against everything we know about human psychology. We're told to go big, make dramatic changes, and push through with willpower. This is exactly why most people fail. Think about your last attempt to build a habit. You probably decided to exercise for an hour every day, read for 30 minutes each night, or completely overhaul your diet overnight. You felt excited and motivated for the first few days. You might have even succeeded for a week or two. But then life happened. You had a stressful day at work and skipped the gym. You were exhausted one evening and didn't read. You were overwhelmed and reached for comfort food instead of your meal plan. Suddenly, you felt like you'd broken your streak, and the guilt crushed you. This is where most people give up completely. They tell themselves they lack discipline, that they're not the type of person who can stick to habits. But the problem isn't you. The problem is the method. Everything changed when I discovered how Japanese culture approaches habit formation. In Japan, there's a philosophy called kaizen, continuous small improvements. But there's something even more powerful they use for building habits. Instead of trying to transform their entire lives overnight, Japanese people focus on changes so small that failure becomes nearly impossible. They understand something that Western culture completely misses. Sustainable change happens through tiny actions repeated consistently over time. Here's the exact method that saved my life. Instead of committing to 1 hour at the gym, I committed to putting on my workout clothes. Instead of reading for 30 minutes, I committed to reading 1 page. Instead of overhauling my entire diet, I committed to drinking 1 glass of water when I woke up. This sounds ridiculously small, right? That's exactly why it works. When you make the habit so easy that you can't fail, you start building what psychologists call success momentum. Every time you complete your tiny habit, your brain releases dopamine, reinforcing the behavior. More importantly, you start changing your identity. When you put on workout clothes every day, you begin seeing yourself as someone who exercises. When you read 1 page daily, you start identifying as a reader. When you drink water every morning, you become someone who takes care of their health. The magic happens after about 2 weeks of consistency. The tiny habit becomes automatic, and you naturally want to do more. You put on your workout clothes and think, well, I'm already dressed. I might as well exercise. You read 1 page and find yourself continuing because you're enjoying the book. But here's the crucial part. You never force yourself to do more. The expansion happens naturally. If you only do the minimum requirement, that's perfectly fine. You've still succeeded. This approach works because it aligns with how our brains actually function. Our brains resist dramatic changes because they perceive them as threats. But tiny changes fly under the radar of our resistance mechanisms. Scientific research proves this completely. Studies from Stanford University show that people who start with micro-habits are 300% more likely to maintain their habits long-term. The success rate jumps from 10% to over 80% simply by making the initial habit smaller. Let me give you the exact framework. First, identify the habit you want to build and reduce it to the smallest possible version. If you want to meditate, start with 1 minute. If you want to write, commit to 1 sentence. If you want to learn a language, begin with 1 new word per day. Second, attach your micro-habit to something you already do consistently. This is called habit stacking. After you brush your teeth, you'll do 1 push-up. After you pour your morning coffee, you'll write 1 sentence. After you sit down at your desk, you'll take 3 deep breaths. Third, celebrate every completion, no matter how small. When you finish your micro-habit, acknowledge your success. Say yes out loud, smile, or feel proud. This rewires your brain for success. I've used this method to completely transform my life. I started with reading 1 page per day and now read over 50 books per year. I began with 1 push-up and now exercise regularly. I started with writing 1 sentence and now create content consistently. The key is patience and trust in the process. Most people overestimate what they can accomplish in a week and underestimate what they can achieve in a year. Micro-habits help you accomplish dramatically more in the long term. If you're struggling with habit formation, pick 1 habit you've been trying to build and reduce it to a 2-minute version. Commit to this micro version for 30 days without pressure to do more. Don't try to build multiple habits at once. Focus on 1 until it becomes automatic, then add another. This takes longer than you want, but gets you to your goals faster because you won't keep starting over. The 90% of people who fail aren't weak or undisciplined. They're using the wrong method. You now have access to an approach that works. Your future self will thank you for starting small today rather than going big and quitting tomorrow. The question isn't whether this method works. The question is whether you're willing to start smaller than your ego wants you to.